The air was crisp, filled with the anticipation of Christmas morning. The stars twinkled brightly in the clear night sky, casting a serene glow over the snowy landscape. It was a night that seemed to promise peace and joy, a perfect prelude to the festive day ahead. In the heart of Fayetteville, West Virginia, the Sodder family home glowed with warmth and the spirit of the season. The house was adorned with twinkling Christmas lights, and the scent of pine and freshly baked cookies wafted through the air, creating an atmosphere of cozy contentment. George and Jenny Sodder, along with 9 of their 10 children, were looking forward to a joyous Christmas celebration. The family gathered around the Christmas tree, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the lights, as they shared laughter and exchanged gifts, their hearts full of love and happiness. Little did they know, a nightmare was about to unfold, one that would forever etch their names in the annals of unsolved mysteries. As the night wore on, an ominous shadow seemed to loom over the house, hinting at the tragedy that was about to strike. As the night deepened and the younger children drifted off to sleep, a sinister shadow fell upon the Sodder household. The house, once filled with the sounds of laughter and joy, now lay silent, with only the soft breathing of the sleeping children breaking the stillness. Shortly after midnight, a fire erupted, engulfing the house in a raging inferno. The flames spread rapidly, consuming everything in their path with a ferocity that seemed almost unnatural. The once cozy home was now a blazing hellscape, its walls and roof collapsing under the intense heat. The flames danced with a ferocity that seemed to defy explanation, casting an eerie glow upon the snow-covered ground. The contrast between the cold, white snow and the intense orange flames created a surreal and haunting scene, one that would be etched into the memories of those who witnessed it. Amidst the chaos and confusion, George and Jenny Sodder fought desperately to save their children. They braved the searing heat and choking smoke, their hearts pounding with fear and determination as they tried to reach their beloved children trapped inside the burning house. They managed to escape the inferno with 4 of their children, but 5 remained trapped within the burning house. The realization hit them like a physical blow, filling them with a sense of helplessness and despair as they watched the flames consume their home and their hopes. The fire raged on, fueled by the wooden structure of the house, and soon, only smoldering ashes remained. The once vibrant and lively home was now reduced to a pile of charred ruins, a stark reminder of the devastating power of the fire. As dawn broke, casting a somber light upon the charred ruins, a chilling realization washed over the Sodders. The new day brought with it the harsh reality of their loss, the bright morning light contrasting sharply with the dark remnants of their home. The fire had claimed more than just their home, it had taken 5 of their precious children, or so it seemed. The grief-stricken parents stood before the ruins, their hearts heavy with sorrow and disbelief as they tried to come to terms with the magnitude of their loss. For as the ashes cooled and the smoke cleared, a haunting question emerged. Where were the bodies? The absence of their children's remains added a new layer of mystery to the tragedy, leaving the Sodders with more questions than answers, and a lingering hope that perhaps, just perhaps, their children might still be alive somewhere. The fire marshal, in his report, concluded that the fire was accidental, caused by faulty wiring. It seemed like a straightforward case, a tragic accident that had claimed the lives of 5 children. But George Sodder, his heart heavy with grief, couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The official explanation did little to comfort him, and his mind was plagued with questions and doubts. The fire had been fierce, yes, but shouldn't there have been some trace of his children? The remains of the house were thoroughly examined, yet no bones or any other physical evidence of the children were found. As he began to pick through the debris, his suspicions deepened. He couldn't understand how a fire could completely incinerate 5 bodies without leaving any trace. It defied logic and everything he knew about fires. The ladder he kept propped against the house, a ladder he knew to be sturdy and reliable, was missing. This ladder was always in the same spot, and its sudden disappearance was more than just a coincidence to George. Without it, his older sons, John and George Jr., wouldn't have been able to climb to the 2nd floor to rescue their siblings. The absence of the ladder was a critical detail that gnawed at George's mind. Then, there were the trucks. These trucks were George's livelihood, and he maintained them meticulously. George Sodder, a coal delivery man, had 2 trucks that were usually parked in the driveway. They were always in good working condition, ready for the next day's deliveries. On that fateful night, for reasons he couldn't explain, neither truck would start. It was as if they had been tampered with, deliberately disabled to prevent any chance of escape or rescue. It was as if fate itself had conspired against his family. Every possible avenue of escape or rescue had been systematically blocked. To add to the unsettling circumstances, the phone line to the house was found to be cut. This was no accident. Someone had intentionally severed their line of communication. This discovery sent a chill down George's spine. The realization that someone had gone to such lengths to isolate them was terrifying. Someone had deliberately isolated them, preventing them from calling for help as the fire raged. The more George thought about it, the more convinced he became that this was no ordinary fire. The pieces of the puzzle simply weren't fitting, and George Sodder was determined to uncover the truth. He knew that the answers were out there, hidden beneath layers of deception and mystery. His resolve to find out what really happened to his children grew stronger with each passing day. George began to gather every piece of information he could find, scouring old newspaper clippings and talking to anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual that night. The community was abuzz with rumors and theories, each more outlandish than the last. Some believed the children had been kidnapped, while others thought it was a case of arson with a sinister motive. George even hired a private investigator to look into the case, hoping that a fresh pair of eyes might see something he had missed. The investigator's findings only added to the mystery, revealing inconsistencies and unexplained details that further fueled George's suspicions. Despite the passage of time, the Sodder family never gave up hope. They held vigils and kept the memory of their missing children alive, refusing to accept the official explanation. George Sodder's determination to find the truth became a lifelong quest. He knew that somewhere, somehow, the answers were waiting to be discovered, and he vowed to keep searching, no matter how long it took. As George Sodder delved into the events leading up to the fire, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. He spent countless hours sifting through old documents, piecing together fragments of a puzzle that seemed to grow more sinister with each discovery. He recalled a series of strange and unsettling incidents that now seemed fraught with ominous significance. Each memory, once dismissed as trivial or coincidental, now took on a darker hue. There had been the insurance salesman, a man who had become overly insistent, almost threatening when George declined to renew a policy. The man's demeanor had been unnerving, his persistence bordering on harassment. Then there were the whispers, the veiled threats from some locals who resented George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini and the fascist regime in Italy. These were not just idle gossip, they were laced with malice and foreboding. One incident in particular stood out in George's mind. Just weeks before the fire, a man had approached his sons, who were selling Christmas decorations by the road. The encounter had seemed innocuous at first, but the man's behavior quickly turned unsettling. The stranger had stared intently at the Sodder children, his gaze cold and calculating. It was as if he were sizing them up, contemplating something sinister. "This house is going to go up in smoke," he said, his voice a low growl, "and your children are going to be destroyed." The words were chilling, delivered with a conviction that sent shivers down George's spine. At the time, George had dismissed it as the ramblings of a drunkard. He had shrugged it off, not wanting to believe that anyone could harbor such malevolence. Now, those words echoed in his ears, taking on a chilling new meaning. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the stranger's threat had been anything but idle. Could the fire have been an act of arson, a calculated act of revenge? The possibility gnawed at George Sodder, fueling his determination to uncover the truth. He began to see connections where he had once seen none, patterns that pointed to a deliberate act of destruction. The possibility gnawed at George Sodder, fueling his determination to uncover the truth. He refused to accept the official explanation that the fire had been an accident. There were too many unanswered questions, too many loose ends. He refused to believe that his children had perished in the fire. The lack of remains, the inconsistencies in the investigation, all pointed to a different conclusion. They were out there, somewhere, and he would move heaven and earth to find them. They were out there, somewhere, and he would move heaven and earth to find them. George's quest for the truth became an obsession, driving him to search through old records, interview witnesses, and follow every lead, no matter how tenuous. His determination was unwavering, fueled by a father's love and a burning desire for justice. Section 4. A father's unwavering resolve. In the aftermath of the fire, the authorities seemed content to close the case, to attribute the tragedy to a freak accident. But George Sodder refused to let the matter rest. He knew in his heart that his children were alive, and he would dedicate the rest of his life to finding them. Driven by an unyielding love for his children, George Sodder embarked on a tireless campaign for justice. He hired private investigators, offered rewards, and chased down every lead, no matter how improbable. He became a familiar face to law enforcement officials, newspaper reporters, and radio personalities, urging them to keep the case alive. George and Jenny had a large billboard erected along Route 16, the main highway that passed through Fayetteville. It featured the faces of their 5 missing children, frozen in time, their smiles a painful reminder of what had been lost. "What was Christmas to other people was a day of mourning for us," George Sodder once lamented. But even in their grief, the Sodders never gave up hope. Section 5, A Garden of Eternal Hope. Years turned into decades, and still there was no sign of the missing Sodder children. The pain of their loss never faded, but it was tempered by a flicker of hope, a belief that someday, somehow, their family would be whole again. In a poignant tribute to their lost children, George and Jenny Sodder transformed their property into a memorial garden. They planted 5 slender trees, each one representing a missing child, their branches reaching towards the heavens as if in perpetual prayer. The garden became a sacred space, a place where the Sodders could find solace amidst their grief and draw strength from their unwavering faith. The garden stood as a testament to the enduring power of love, a symbol of the Sodder family's refusal to give up hope. It was a place of quiet reflection, where visitors could pay their respects and perhaps, just perhaps, offer a prayer for the safe return of the missing children.